Hey everyone, it's Brooke, and I'm here to do my January wrap-up. I'm going to include books and comics in this. I will leave a little annotation in the description bar where the comics part starts if you want to just skip ahead to that. So this is probably going to be a little bit of a longer video, but watch what you want to watch. I want to share with you my weird reading month. It was really bizarre. I really wanted to start off the new year with a bang, and I didn't. I felt the entire time like I wasn't reading the thing I wanted to be reading at that moment, which is a weird feeling, but it is like I would think maybe I would have enjoyed all of these more had I just read them at a different time. I don't know. I was just in a weird mind frame. The first half was a little bit worse than the second half, so let's just talk about it. The first three things I read were the 3 poetry pamphlets I got from Dancing Girl Press. You may remember. That is The Winter Palace by Nina Puro, which was my favorite, and I highly recommend it. I thought there were so many great feminist Southern kind of sensibilities to this. My second favorite was A Small Woman by Cecilia Pinto. And then my least favorite was Girlhood and Machines by Marie Elia. But I really did enjoy reading them. It was it's been fun getting back into the poetry experience, and I will probably definitely be ordering more for Dancing Girl Press. Next, I read Gold Fame Citrus by Vaye Watkins. I have done a full review for this, so I will link it down below. Needless to say, it was a little bit of a mixed bag. I liked the first part, didn't love the second part, so it's like a 2.5, 3-star read for me. But again, if you want to know more, check out my review. The next thing I finished was a short story collection, After the Apocalypse, by Maureen F. McHugh, or McHugh, depending on how she pronounces it, I'm not sure. This is published by Small Beer Press. I have had this on my TBR for almost since it came out, which I think was 2011. So this is definitely one that I'm glad to have gotten to this month. Getting some stuff off my shelves that has been there way too long. I went into this believing that it was going to be 9 or so short stories about humanity in the aftermath of an apocalypse. So it was frustrating when I found out that there are maybe 3-4 stories that are like that, and the rest of them, I don't really understand how they have anything to do with an apocalypse. So I just, that was super frustrating, and I felt like the collection kind of wandered around a little bit when it shouldn't have. It wasn't as focused, some of the stories were just filler, and I liked the stories that dealt with the aftermath of apocalypse a lot more than I liked the other ones. So it was a 3-star read. I really did enjoy the apocalyptic stories because I think her writing style really lends itself to that, because she's not so much focusing on the apocalypse itself or the event, the causality. She's focusing on the effect, the aftermath, the ways that humans are changed or they're trying to deal with this. And I thought that was really fascinating and had some really great thought experiments going on. Her writing is very sort of stark and spare, and I think that lends itself really well to that kind of world building. But it just wasn't my favorite. It just wasn't my favorite collection. Even the stories I really liked, the first, the last were really good. There's one of them I really liked called Useless Things. Even those stories, though, as much as I like them, they weren't my favorite short stories ever. So 3 stars. If it sounds like something you're interested in, maybe give it a shot, but I don't know that I would just be beating down your door with this book, if that makes sense. For book club this month, we read Anna Freeman's Their Fair Fight, which I'm sure you've heard a good bit about. It's historical fiction, takes place at the turn of the 19th century. It focuses on 3 point-of-view characters. Ruth, who is sort of a low-class lady born into a brothel, who ends up, one of the men who frequents the brothel basically sort of buys her and enters her into the world of bare knuckle boxing. And then there's Charlotte, who ends up married to the man who sort of buys Ruth, and she's a more upper class lady, sort of, constricted by the bounds of the upper class society and the kind of interior world, and shackled in her marriage and that kind of thing. And then there's George, who is friends with Granville, who is the man linking Charlotte and Ruth, and who is a bisexual character who tries to use anyone he can to get ahead in life. He's born into kind of an upper class family, but he's not the oldest son, so he's not going to inherit the money, so he's trying desperately to make it on his own or find his own way, and he will use anyone he can to get there. And it alternates between their perspectives, so it's interesting to see how each person perceives different events they have in common. I like books that play with perception in that way, but at the same time, it causes you to have to reread certain events multiple times, so you have to take a couple steps back, go 3 steps forward, which slowed down the plot to me a lot. I think this, if it had been a little bit shorter, because it's almost 500 pages, I think the middle really dawdled, and it really kind of took me out of the enjoyment. I liked the beginning, I liked the end. The middle should have been tightened up a little bit, I think what Anna Freeman does really well is setting the world, incorporating sort of the slang terms and, really understanding the boxing world and the history of that at this time in history. So I think she really makes a very immersive, realistic experience. So I like that about her historical fiction. It just wasn't a super tight read for me. But as a book club read, it was fantastic, and we had a lot to talk about. For Project Annotate, my selection is Science Preceding the End of the World by Yuri Herrera. This is a translated novel from Mexican to English, translated by Lisa Dillman, who is actually a local professor where I live. She teaches at Maureen University. I really loved this. I thought this was, it's like 100 pages. And the translator's note at the end is fantastic. I really enjoyed reading about how she went about translating this. It's the story of a girl, Makina, who lives in Mexico. She is on a journey across the border into the U.S. to find her brother and bring him home. And it's just, that sort of, it's almost like a hero's journey in a way. There's some allusions, I really think, to something like Dante's The Inferno. There's definitely a feeling of kind of this descension into hell, which I found really fascinating. And I just think the language is really beautiful, sparse. I think both Yuri Herrera and Lisa Dillman's interpretation of Yuri Herrera are just phenomenal. And I know he has another one coming out this year, so I will be buying it. And it was really fun to annotate for the project and leave a little note. And I'm going to mail it forward to Ellie over at the Bibliophile this week. Just underlinings and little commentary. It was a lot of fun, and I'm having a lot of fun with the project, and I can't wait to mail it forward and get the next book in the chainmail circle, so to speak. For my short story reading group over at Goodreads, we chose In the Country Stories by Mia Alvar. Mia Alvar is a Filipino writer. She grew up in Bahrain, though, which is a small island off of Saudi Arabia, and in New York City. She now currently still lives in New York City, and these are just a lot of stories about kind of like the Filipino diaspora, the people who, not even the people who still live in the Philippines, the people who have moved out of the Philippines and different parts of the country, mostly places she's had experience with herself, whether it be Bahrain or the U.S., and kind of their stories. There are people from all different walks of life, and it was just a breathtakingly beautiful, realistic, immersive short story collection about an area of the world and a people of the world that I didn't know a lot about. So I got a lot from this. The people who joined in on the reading on Goodreads, I think, really enjoyed this as well. I can't recommend it highly enough. It's a near perfect collection in what it's trying to accomplish. And just if you have any room in your reading this year, this is probably the most I think this is probably the best thing I read this month, but I think I enjoyed Science Preceding the End of the World the most in an enjoyment factor. But I think this is just leaps and bounds the most important and the most, it stood out from the rest, really. Now for the comics portion, I'm going to start with stuff I read digitally, the first thing being Outcast Volume 1 by Robert Kirkman. I am not a huge Kirkman fan. I come in and out of enjoying The Walking Dead, the comics, not the show. I think he can be really light on character development and really heavy on torture porn, at least in that series. So I was a little bit hesitant to pick up Outcast, but I'd heard good things, and I know they're making a TV show out of it, so I thought I'd give it a go. Really liked it. I think going into it with lower expectations really helped. It's about a guy who's down and out on his luck. He's sort of his entire life been followed around by this poltergeist who keeps possessing people around him, and he's the only one really who can exorcise them, or exorcise this poltergeist. And throughout all these experiences, he's really lost everyone he loves for various reasons. And I don't know. I kind of liked the down and out on his luck underdog character in this weird poltergeist exorcism world. I think the art is lovely, especially the color palette, which always looks sort of like dusk with these dusky blues and pinks. So I actually really recommend it. I think I gave it 4 stars. I also continued on with Locke Key Volume 3. Liked it a lot. I think, I loved Volume 1, liked Volume 2. I think Volume 3 gets me back into the solidly loving category. It had some delightful new keys discovered. I don't want to get too much in plot because it is the third, but I really enjoyed the way it explored the characters, especially the children in the family. I think we learned a lot more about their emotional and mental states, which was fascinating to me. I thought really well done. And Locke and Key is a fabulous series. There's only 6 volumes. I think you should read it if you are so inclined or like horror comics. The next thing I read, I posted a review for, and that is Sunstone Volume 1 by Stjepan Sejic. And so I'm not going to talk too much about it. I really loved it. Go ahead and check out my review on my channel if you want to know more. And then finally, a new release that I have been just eagerly anticipating and so excited for. It's the 4th volume of Lazarus. It came out at the end of January, and I read it immediately as soon as I got it. This is a series by Greg Rucka that I was hesitant about at first. I didn't love the first volume, but people kept talking about it so much. I was like, what did I miss? And so I picked up the 2nd volume, and that's where I fell in love, because it really opened up the world. And then the 3rd volume, which is still my favorite, Conclave is such an amazing story arc, really connected me emotionally with Forever, the main character. And Volume 4, now that I'm so dedicated to her as a heroine and a leader of the story, I loved it. It's this volume in particular is very heavy on like the militaristic themes and the war that's going on. But at the heart of it is Forever, and things happen here that grab my heart again. I love seeing her leader of a team and how that dynamic works out. I love seeing other characters from past arcs pop up in this. I just think that the plot is unfolding into really interesting ways. I think, honestly, Lazarus is my very favorite comic ongoing series at the time, even more than Saga. Just because I am so, at this point, invested in Forever and her future and what's going to happen to her, particularly with the way this ended. Oh my goodness. So I have convinced my book club, we're reading comics in February, so I've convinced them to read the first 2 volumes, and I hope that they enjoy it as much as I do, but I understand that some people don't. The art's very, it's nice. I really like the colors. I love the snow scenes in this a lot. But I understand that it's not everyone's cup of tea, and the story's not everyone's cup of tea, but this chick loves it. So, highly recommend. That's me done, y'all. I'll see you next time.